Hi, I'm author Dan Allen, and I'm here today sharing with you the Goblin Curse of Hamlin, Chapter 11. We've got Davy the Dragon and Bridget the. Bridget, what happened to your hair? Oh, that's Darla the Duck. Apparently, Bridget the Bunny's off doing what bunnies do. But if she comes back next time with 6 more baby bunnies, no more skipping bedtime stories. Chapter 11 of the Goblin Curse of Hamlin, A Secret Uncovered. The instant the high-strung tones of the Princess Anna's voice reached Tobias's ear, his feet reversed their steps several paces. Looking up, Tobias spied where the noise drifted out from the third and highest row of windows in the castle. Oh, remember, Tobias is trying to break into the castle so he can get a horse to catch up with Matthias, who's off to kill the goblins, right? Okay. It was a long way up. Tobias began to climb. The castle rose up directly out of the heavy pile stonework of the city wall. The grout was in some disrepair, and he managed to find footholds by moonlight. But the climb was perilous. Palms sweating, Tobias made his way higher and higher on the wall until at last the stones over his head were smooth and well mortared, and he could find no more handholds. Loosing his makeshift cord from his shoulder and securing the end about his waist, Tobias surveyed the candlelit windows of the castle above him. As he prepared to make a toss of his grappling hook, there came a sharp sound of something scraping over stone, which sent a shiver up Tobias's back and down his arms. The shiver nearly cost him his grip on the rock. It was the sound of wooden shutters being closed. Again the scraping sounded, even nearer this time, just a few yards off to his left. Then suddenly the candlelight showing between the vanes of the shutters winked out. It's a servant securing the castle for the night, Tobias thought. Soon all the windows will be closed and made fast, and I shall have no way of entry. Then the shutters began to close on the second floor. His only hope of entry was now the uppermost level, where the princess lay in her bedchamber, but perhaps also the duke and his watchman. He would get one chance. Tobias weighed the cord in his hand and practiced his throw. Then he gave a mighty heave. The makeshift hook sailed on a straight course over his head, rebounded off an eave, and dropped straight through the open window on the third floor, which was mighty luck indeed. But his throw was so mighty it caused Tobias to topple outward from the wall in a slow motion. He grasped at the cord and pulled frantically, knowing that the thin line would not stop a long fall. When the cord at last came taut, his body was nearly on the level, and only his right toe still holding onto some stone. In a flash, Tobias pulled himself up the cord, with his legs as the counterforce, like a runner moving straight up. At last his hand came upon the uppermost windowsill, and he pulled himself through the window, swift and silent as a swallow disappearing into its hidden nest. Standing in a lamplit corridor, Tobias coiled the cord as quickly as he might, but the sounds upon the stairs sent his heart thumping into an even quicker rhythm. Abandoning his attempt to wind the cord, he cast himself and the loose rope behind a heavy winter curtain, and he held his breath against the throbbing of his chest and the burning thirst of his lungs. Had he managed to conceal the entire length of the cord? Would the waving curtains spell his doom? Footsteps on the stone floor reached his ears, the scraping of shutters, and more footsteps, ever closer. Tobias held his breath, knowing his life hung in the balance. The sound of the shutters closing. No, he's not going to get caught, of course. He's the hero of the story. See, even she knows that, right? Just be patient. Tobias held his breath, knowing that his life hung in the balance. The sound of the shutters closing next to him roared in his ears, so close, so real. Then a shutter latch clicked. The evening caretaker's step sounded ominously against the stone floor, passing within a single step of the curtain where Tobias hid, but continued on shutting the remaining windows. Tobias gulped a breath and peered out from behind the edge of the curtain. Further down the hall, facing away from him, was a stout woman with a candle in her hand. She turned and came back along the hallway, snuffing out the oil lamps, but paused in front of a recessed doorway and opened it a crack. "Go away!" shrieked the sharp voice of the princess, which was as good as church bells to Tobias's ears. The servant woman begged the princess's pardon and shut the door. Tobias heard the lock clank after it. The caretaker lady left the corridor in a hurry. Tobias stepped silently from behind the curtain and moved in the shadows of large vases that were filled with spring flowers, heading towards the door of Anna Marie's bedchamber. He ducked under the mounted head of a stag and found himself facing double doors of carved oak. If he could get in and convince the princess not to scream while he explained his cause, she might help him get a horse, and that would be his best chance to stop Matthias. But how? The caretaker had just cracked the door and Anna had shouted her right out. It wouldn't do to have the princess shouting after she had gone, when nobody else should have been in the corridor, least of all Tobias. He stood in front of the door and purposed to knock very quietly. The castle walls are stone, but the door is wood. If she calls out to ask who it is, I will hear, but perhaps not the other guests. And so when I answer and say it is me, the piper, perhaps she alone will hear. Tobias raised his hand to knock, but before his hand struck the door, the wooden portal opened swiftly and silently, seemingly on its own. Standing just inside was Anna. She held in her hand a single lit candle in a holder. It illuminated her face and his, leaving the rest to shadow. Tobias? She pulled him quickly into her room and shut the door. What are you doing here? How did you get in? I haven't much time. My sister's in danger, and many of her friends because of the bishop's new challenge. Anne-Marie quickly lit the oil lamp by her bed table with her candle and sat down at the side of her bed to hear his tale. She wore a long, glittery tunic for a nightgown, and her hair was tied up with a ribbon. Strangely, she wore shoes upon her feet. You have on shoes, Tobias noted. My feet were cold, she said shyly. Assuredly, said Tobias, finding himself at a loss for words. He certainly wasn't going to accuse the princess of trying to sneak out, which she was. But I would hear your tale, and quickly, said Anna, taking his hand in hers and pressing it to urge him into speaking. Feeling her hand in his, Tobias sucked in a breath of surprise like a bucket of ice water had been poured over his back, and stuttered out an answer. Claire, my sister, was taken ill by some bad well water and became a goblin. Is this true? Anna gasped. Verily, said Tobias. And each spring some child or another of Hamlin succumbs and begins to change by voice and habits and in their eyes until their whole visage is that of a goblin. Aforetime Father Cato, now our bishop, cast such into the river, but I with my pipes am able to discover which children's ears can hear those tones spoken only by goblins. Then, by clever songs and tricks, I lead them away into a spot in the forest where on a certain day, which is not 3 days hence, I deliver them to Leffler, a remarkable goblin who saved my sister from Father Cato. They live in a secret village in a cave under the hills, and Claire is their princess. Anna was so captivated by the story that she had not taken one breath since Tobias began talking, but breathed in and more in until she looked as though she would pop. Matthias must have seen the entrance to Goblin Town, Tobias continued. I believe it is very near his home village. He will probably lay in wait outside the cave. When Leffler comes out to meet me, he will be slain instantly by the hunter. But if my sister chances to come with him, as she did once, then perhaps she will also be murdered. I need your help, Princess Anna. Can you please help me? No, he couldn't just call her on herself. They didn't have cell phones back then. Davy, serious, they did not have cell phones back in the Middle Ages. Even Darla knows that. No, he can't build a cell phone either. Verily, she replied, squeezing his hand more tightly and speaking softly in a reverie. Now I am become the keeper of another terrible secret. And this is the second secret I hold for another. But what can I do to aid your quest, Tobias? It is a worthy cause of any help I may offer. A horse. A fast horse, if you can spare one. And you purpose to leave in the night? Yea, if we come upon a plan that will do it. If it's planning that you need, then you have come well, said Anna confidently. I have a plan for every occasion. Rising to her feet, she thought for a moment, and then touched a finger decisively upon her chin in the mode of coming to a decision. You must wait here and lie upon my bed in this nightgown. I'll never, said Tobias in a shocked voice. That's a woman's garment. Will you defy a royal order? Anna challenged. She set her hands upon her hips, suddenly becoming quite terrifying. I cannot, Tobias answered honestly. Then turn about while I undress and put off your tunic. Mine has golden threads and can be seen by any passing lantern. And keep your trousers on, silly. Tobias turned about and took off his tunic and handed it behind his back to Anna, who swapped it for hers. And so by exchanging garments, they both covered themselves with disguises. But Tobias felt quite out of place wearing a princess's nightgown. The watch will come every 4th hour, and they must see me upon my bed for their report. You see, I used to sneak out, but my father put an end to it after my mother died, because he could not bear to lose me. Sounds as if you're a prisoner of the citadel, Tobias wondered. It is well enough, Anna replied. I have food and warmth, and that is more than many of my people. But you have no freedom, Tobias stated. That is imprisonment. I make of it what I can, said Anna. And thanks to you, I may escape this fortified bedroom for a night without fear of being discovered. Here's my plan. You lie upon the bed to fool the guards into thinking I'm yet sleeping under my pillow. Meanwhile, I will find Elias the runner and send him to prepare a horse. But what if you can't find him? Or what if he makes a report against me? Elias would never fail any request I put to him. I sent him on an errand of great importance this very night. I was about to go and receive his report when I found you at my door. But what if he's seen hurrying about in the stables in the middle of the night? Ease yourself, Tobias, and trust to my plans. I think of every possible end. Some lord or another is always trying to leave at the crack of dawn. So the servants are often about at night preparing things. He won't be suspected. That's good, Tobias replied, with a note of chagrin at having doubted Anna Marie's expertise. Meanwhile, I shall return and fetch you after the watch has passed. Excellent. Can you ride as fast as the Duke's men? Not likely, Tobias admitted. And you know the roads well enough to travel at them by night? By day, yes. Well, I usually come about things the long way by many meanderings in the wood. I enjoy the walking and the scenery. Anna put her hands on her head and shook it. This was not in my plan. But she could think very quickly, and so she arrived upon a new plan in only a few seconds. I know all the roads. What is to stop we two from riding together? But Anna, we shall exit the city through a secret pass in the cathedral cellar, Anna continued, disregarding Tobias's protest as if the matter had already been discussed at length and agreed upon. But we must be careful. A patrol of watchmen makes rounds outside the city walls. This surprises many thieves who are caught after they have come down the city wall on the outside and wrongly think they are safe. I will be careful. And I'm surely glad for your help, Tobias said, though I'm not glad to see you leave now that we've been together with you again. Nor I, said Anna. Tobias's heart swelled in his chest and he yearned to embrace her, but she had already turned away, opened the door, and slipped soundlessly into the corridor, sealing it behind her. Tobias climbed at once into the princess's bed and lay still. The scent of her fragranced hair was strong upon the pillow, and pleasant. It was a feather bed with soft quilts and down pillows. But we won't say any more of Tobias's worrying, for he actually fell asleep upon Anna's bed and was nearly startled when the door opened. But before his mind was quick enough to recall where he was, the door was shut again. The watch. Tobias sighed in relief. His heart pounded so heavily inside him that he wondered that the guards did not return to discover the cause of the great thumping. After that, he was quite awake and sat upon the edge of his bed, alert and ready. That's the end of Chapter 11. Join us next time for Chapter 12 of The Goblin Curse of Hamlin. I'm Dan Allen. We'll see you next time.